Good afternoon. Just getting the right position. I'm sure that by this stage in the day you've heard this presentation many times. So if I forget anything, please feel free to use your superior knowledge and jump in. I know I'm quite happy for this to be an interactive experience. Okay. I'm going to do this in 3 parts. The first part I'll talk briefly about the key criteria and what I understand by it. I'll try and keep that brief. The second part will be about the actual application, and then the third part will be comparing the applications with the criteria and making recommendations. I have a handout about the third part, which I'll give to you as I come to that part. Okay. I used the key criteria because in this instance there wasn't, as far as I saw it, there weren't 3 good applications, so it wasn't necessary to use the assessment framework. The key criteria was adequate. Okay, the first one is that the application fulfills personal objectives. And I took that to mean that the person the applicant actually gets something out of the process as well. That it's a two-way thing. They actually contribute to the community, but also are developed as a result of engaging in the process. It might be by gaining a qualification they didn't have in experience or increasing confidence, but in some way they've benefited from it. The second criteria is that the project benefits the community. Now I must at this point define community. What I mean by community is pretty nebulous, I think. It could be straightforward as a geographical area that shares the same school or the same post office or the same local council office, or it could be a smaller group within that big group, which is made up of, say, a group of Kurdish refugees. They could be part of the community or a community within themselves. Coming back to the criteria that the project benefits the community, this can be in a number of different ways. It could be through bringing in new skills, it could be through using resource or utilising a resource that's already there, it could be by increasing people's pride in that particular area, by getting people to talk to each other. So it's a range of different ways that community can be benefited. The third criteria is that it has clearly defined realistic goals and reasonable timetables. Very straightforward. And the fourth criteria is that they're measurable outputs for the community. I take that to mean that the project has a set of goals it sets out to achieve, and that there's a way of quantifying how it's achieved those goals, be it through statistical methods, be it through achieving a particular goal, setting up a drama group, but basically there's some way that it ties into number 3, in that there is some way of measuring what that project's achieved. The fifth criteria is that the applicant has no other source of funds for the scheme. Now this is if the particular idea or project put forward for which there's money available in another grant or another scheme that's particularly for that type of proposal. It's just being aware that the money might be better coming from another pot. Okay. The sixth criteria, the work with the community reduces barriers of exclusion. Firstly, barriers of exclusion as a result of poverty, lack of information, barriers, racism, institutional racism. Could be anything that makes people feel that they're excluded. So anything that makes people feel they're part of community would fit that criteria. Also, then it talks about improving the quality of life. Very broad category. Could be about making the streets cleaner to bringing in more income, or changing the way that somebody eats. Quality of life. And communication understanding is very straightforward. So that's a brief summary of what I understand by the criteria and how I've used it. The three applications, very briefly. Firstly, there's Roger Dory. He's from Cameroon. He lives in Chelsea. He's 35 years old, and he speaks French and little English. Now, both him and another applicant are clients of the foundation, so therefore I assume that they fit the criteria of being victims of torture or organised violence. Okay. Coming back to it, he's from the Cameroon. He speaks French and a little English. His status in his country is as an asylum seeker, and he needs a translator. Now, the project he wants to set up is, firstly, he wants to train and get a qualification to coach football, and then he wants to make a five-a-side football team from local boys in the community, and these are boys from Cameroon. The qualifications or the relevant experience he's got to undertake this project is that he was a teacher in Cameroon and has taught physical education. Alongside with the football, he will also teach the boys about healthy eating, certain life skills, and those sorts of things. The cost of that particular project is £2,303, and that includes the hire of the football's kits for the boys, football league membership, and a coaching qualification. The second application is from somebody called David Rogers, who lives in Southwark. He's 80 years old and he's English. His link to the foundation is that he was held by the Japanese during the Second World War. He's also a member of Eric Lomax's group. Now, I know that I've seen the name Eric Lomax on trustees, so I'm not fully aware of what the connection is about. His language is English. He's a British citizen, and but his project is to help children of a local junior school convert derelict school land into community gardens, and in the process teach them gardening skills. Basically, he will go into the school to help the children design the garden and to plant, and he's got the support for the local school to do this. His qualifications and relevant experience is that he was a teacher for many years, and he also has 30 years of gardening experience with an allotment in his own garden. The cost of his project is £1,500. The third applicant is called Hodan Hirut. She's from Hackney. She's 26 years old. She's from Somalia. She's a client of the foundation, and her language is English. She can speak English, and her status is refugee. The aim of her project is to document Somali women's history, produce a booklet of the history and a website, to set up a friendly society for Somali women and to teach them English. She makes a point in the application about the fact that Somali women have a very passive role and are not in as powerful a position as Somali men, and that she wants to increase their participation and their visibility. The qualifications and the relevant experience that she's got to undertake the project is not clear from the application. The cost of the project is £2,300, of which training for the applicant is just over £1,300. That's the third applicant. Now, I've compared each applicant to the criteria, and I recommend that Roger Dore, which is the chap from Cameroon who wants to set up a five-a-side, I recommend that his application is accepted. My reasons for doing this is that it meets his personal objectives, and it also gets him a football association coaching skills in this country, usable skills in this country. It benefits the community in that it allows the boys, 10 boys, it coaches them in football skills as well as life skills. There's a mentoring aspect to the project, and it also increases the bonds between the boys and increases their health and their self-esteem. Apparently football is a real passion in Cameroon. I don't actually know that much about football, which always shows. And it provides a leisure activity to deprived youngsters, so it gets them out of the house, so it eases the pressure on the family unit. And he's particularly targeting adolescent boys, a period of change, quite a difficult period. Now the project has got clear, defined, realistic goals. It's clearly costed. He's anticipated community needs. For example, he chose 5-a-side football rather than other types of football because he's aware that families won't be able to afford training shoes. So it's evident from his application that he's actually in a position to be able to implement this, and that he knows his community. He may need language. He also wants to undertake the coaching qualification. He may need language support for this because of he's only got little English, and he's underestimated the cost of hiring the pitch. It doesn't add up, so that's another £100. It's a reasonable timetable, yes, it's achievable if he can get his coaching qualification and get the boys up and running. Yes, I think it's a realistic timetable. There's a measurable output. He gets a qualification. Also, you get 10 boys that are trained, and he's a member of a league. He's part of another organisation, League of Footballs, which has certain standards and criteria. Other funding. Can he get other funding? I think he'd have difficulty because of language barrier and also the fact that he's an asylum seeker. From what I understand, sports sponsorship is actually quite difficult until recently, and the council is unlikely to fund an unknown individual. I know from experience in Brixton that there is a similar sort of project, but the person who runs it is a qualified physical education teacher, and she did it for years. So, as for the project, whether it reduces the sixth criteria, it reduces exclusion because football and sport is a uniting thing. Everyone can join in. The boys have a skill they can use at school. They can participate after school. Improves the quality of life for the teenagers, absolutely. It's something they can get involved with and feel proud of. And it helps with communication and understanding because competing with other teams will help to integrate the youngsters and form bridges. And their presence also in the league as the Cameroon team head of the Cameroon boys will actually raise all that. I'll just pause there.